Well, it's that time of year again. We've wrapped up 2022. Everyone's putting all of their best of whiskeys for 2022 together. Today we're talking 2022 whiskeys of the year. Without further ado, let's do this. Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for joining me today. As you can see, we are at the end of the year 2022. I'm always excited to put this list together. So this will be my 2022 top whiskeys of the year. So this is going to be a combo really of any whiskey. So anything that was tasted this year is fair game. And I think I've got a pretty good list of whiskeys this year. I've tried to keep this list to things that are somewhat available. I didn't want to make this a list where there were going to be a million different top highly allocated bourbons that no one has either tried or has the ability to get. So without further ado, let's dive into number 5. As you can see, it's sitting right there and it's from Found North Whiskey. This whiskey here absolutely blew me away. This is a blend of 73% 21-year-old corn whiskey and a 27% 8-year wheat whiskey, all coming in at 116.2 proof. Big boy, very, very interesting whiskey. It was very well done from the samples I've had and the prior bottle that I've had. This is something that was slightly different and unique to me. How that corn and wheat whiskey all blended together to create this batch 5 is absolutely fantastic. Again, I'll have a link in the description below to Found North. You can go check them out. This again is going to be a whiskey that for the most part is going to be available online. You may find it in some local places out in the Northeast, but for the most part, it's going to be a whiskey that you're going to want to look for online. So again, batch 5 blends of 21 and 8-year-old both corn and wheat whiskey. So again, coming in at number 5, Found North. So what do we have coming up next? Number 4, Calumet 16-year. So this guy for me early on, I ultimately was not even a huge fan of it. Having this off of a neck pour was so oak dominant for me that I knew either this was going to be a whiskey that was either going to remain heavy oak or may slightly change, open up a little bit more, get less oaky, and turn into the whiskey that I was hoping that it ultimately did, coming in at 106 proof. This again is the single rack black, rack number 4005.09. Again, only a batch of 18 barrels in terms of the blend. So overall, relatively small in terms of this batch specifically, but how this ultimately developed into those heavy leathers, really nice oak, that kind of tamed down a little bit, but again, nice oak, nice leather, really nice kind of dark fruits. It is a little bit more on the earthier side, so a heavier kind of profile on a bourbon, but if that's something that you tend to enjoy, then this may be a whiskey that I think ultimately you would really enjoy. And it's one that I found myself really enjoying as it opened up. There you have it, coming in at number 4 for my 2022 whiskeys of the year is the Calumet 16-year. What's coming up next? So as you can see, my number 3 2022 whiskey of the year, not just any standard Barrel King. This specifically was their double oaked Stag Junior finished bourbon whiskey. This was a surprise to, I think, a lot of us throughout the year here in 2022. I don't think anyone had ever seen anything from MGP finished in a Stag Junior barrel. So I think everyone's interest was piqued, was extremely high for once the word kind of started to get out on this. This became quickly a fan favorite of a lot of people out there. This just happened to be, for me, a whiskey that I have enjoyed a ton. I love the balance of it being an MGP bourbon, then finished in those heavy Stag Junior barrels. Really pulled a lot of the nuance of that stag, blended really, really well with the MGP. Again, this was one of their 21% rye bourbons that they then finished in a Stag Junior barrel. Them being down in Bourbon, Missouri, gets hot, so a lot of that interaction of that whiskey with the barrel really pulled out some extreme flavors from those Stag Juniors to blend really, really well with that MGP bourbon. So if this is something that you have either tried or are able to get your hands on, again, it will be directly through Barrel King and their membership program. So this came in at 118.8 proof, and again, was aged in Stag Junior bourbon barrels. Had to get our hands on something like this, give it a try. It met and exceeded its expectations. So for me, coming in at number 3 this year was the Barrel King Double Oaked Stag Junior barrel finish bourbon. So what do we have coming up next? So my number 2 whiskey of the year goes to from our friends over at Sagamore Spirits. This is a part of their reserve series, and this is their sherry finished rye whiskey that they finished in 132 gallon PX sherry barrels for upwards of 18 months. Now, oftentimes when you hear a whiskey that is aged or finished for that extended period of time, you find that they're either overdone and the finishing just kind of overshadows the rye whiskey or the whiskey itself. This whiskey for me, and again, this was a very close between 1 and 2, if we're being honest. For me, again, this whiskey, the balance of this and what it had to offer, I think is maybe, if not the best, one of the best whiskeys that Sagamore has done to date. The blend of this between the rye whiskey and the PX sherry was a beautiful marriage, whatever you want to call it. Those rich, dark, fig, heavy, jammy kind of notes. Again, all while not overshadowing the backbone of the rye whiskey. All for me worked absolutely perfectly. I absolutely loved this whiskey and everything that it had to offer. A lot of people echo kind of the same thing. It is a beautiful whiskey and should be something that, for the most part, the vast majority of people have the ability to get it, whether it's local in the area or distributed in your area. And again, Sagamore does a great job with the allocation of a lot of their whiskeys. So again, this is a sourced MGP rye whiskey finished for 18 months in 132 gallon PX sherry barrels, all blended perfectly. If you can find this, go out, buy it, try it, enjoy it. So my number 2 2022 whiskey goes to Sagamore Spirits PX sherried rye whiskey. So coming up next, my number 1 whiskey of the year, my 2022 number 1 whiskey of the year goes to, once again, from Foregate Whiskey Company. However, I couldn't pick just one. I went back and forth trying to figure out, of these 2, which one I enjoyed the most. And since it's my 2022 whiskeys of the year, I can do what I want. We're gonna make an exception today, and this is gonna be a dual whiskey of the year. And for me, what it is these 2 whiskeys had to offer. First, let's touch on the rye whiskey, which is the Port Perry Perry. Again, this is a 95.5 rye whiskey sourced from MGP that's then finished in Australian tawny port casks. Generally speaking, they do not leave the secondary casks being finished for more than 30, maybe 45 days on the high side. So the influence of that 95.5 rye whiskey and that tawny port barrel worked absolutely, hands down, incredibly. It has been probably, for me, one of my favorite whiskeys that I've had in quite a while. It made that kind of impression on me, and it was one that I knew early on was going to be a major contender. So as you can see up here, it was factored heavily into my whiskeys that I tasted in 2022. That right there is gonna be my one, and I'll go with my 1A Kelvin Collaboration 4, which again is a bourbon rye blend finished in, again, Australian tawny port and Barbadian rum casks. The blend again on this is done very typically of what it is that Foregate does, and the attention to detail for not only blending the whiskeys, but then taking those high-end casks, finishing that great whiskey again in another incredible cask, or casks in this case, being, you know, tawny port and Barbadian rum casks. What it did to that whiskey in itself, again, these two were just equally on the same level for me, and I could not pick one or the other. So this year in 2022, I've got a dual whiskey of the year, and again, it comes down to two Foregate whiskey releases, one being the Port Peri Peri and the other being the Kelvin Collaboration 4. There you have it, my 2022 whiskeys of the year, starting with Found North, Calumet 16, Barrel King Stag Junior Finished Bourbon, Sagamore Spirits PX Sherried Rye Whiskey, and my number 1 and 1A, Foregate's Port Peri Peri, and Foregate's Kelvin Collaboration 4. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in to all of my reviews throughout 2022. If you've had any, some, all of these whiskeys, make sure you leave a comment below and let me know your thoughts on these, where or if some of these rank, you know, in your top 5, top 10 whiskeys of 2022. Always love to hear your feedback, and again, what it was that you enjoyed throughout the year 2022. So again, thank you guys for all of the support throughout 2022. Do me one favor, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. Going into 2023, looking for another great year. So again, guys, I appreciate all of your support throughout the year. And remember, it's about the journey and not the destination. Cheers.